For years, I've been avoiding some yoga poses because I've always been told if you have any knee pain in these poses, don't do them, or do them a certain way. I've discovered that I can come closer to Virasana, which is a back bend, and a pigeon pose, and half padmasana, if I do things a certain way. And these are poses I haven't done for quite some time, and maybe you've got the same thing going on. Maybe with just a little refinement to the alignment of the knee over the ankle, and just a little bit more opening of your hips, you can do certain poses. So let's start a practice focusing on strengthening the knees. We'll start seated. Start in Vajrasana, where your inner big toes are together, your heels are drawing in toward one another, and the sits bones are right on the heels. For some of us, we need a little cushion to do this, so do whatever is required so that you can come to some form and some variation of the pose. Step your right foot forward, but keep your left sit bone on the heel. Walk your right foot back so that there's just barely the heel touching the mat. Take your hands around your left knee and push your left knee into the interlaced fingers. Lean into the lifted right leg. See if you can get just a little bit more stretch to the right ankle. Now release and see if you can take the right heel back just a little bit more. Now that you've gotten it to stretch a little bit, once again, powerfully press the left knee forward into the interlaced fingers, but pull the knee back with the arms. Lean into it. See if you can just feel a little bit more lengthening on the right Achilles tendon. Now release and come to downward facing dog. In downward facing dog, bend your left knee a lot and reach through to stretch the back of the right ankle. See how that feels. Now bend the right knee and reach through the left. Straighten the right. Just compare the two sides. We'll go to the opposite side so that you can get both sides elongated. Now come down to your knees. Come to Vajrasana again as you take your pelvis back to the heels. Step your left foot forward. Stay seated on your right sit bone, on your right heel, but step your left foot back. So now the knee is forward of the ankle. Maybe in some yoga classes you were told never take the knee forward of the ankle, but in this case, we're getting a nice preparation for the poses to follow by doing this action. You keep on moving the left heel back, interlace your fingers at the right knee, and activate the right leg. Lean into the left leg, and just pause here as you get a nice stretch there. Maybe you can scoot the left heel back just a little bit more after you've been in the pose for a while. Lean into it. Keep on working the heel down toward the mat. Release and come to downward facing dog again. Lift up. Have your left heel draw down toward the earth as the right knee bends quite a bit. Just feel how that is to plant the heel nicely. Do the opposite, straighten the right leg, draw the right heel down. And now straighten both legs in downward facing dog. Just get this nice fullness in the pose. Before coming down to all fours position, in this tabletop position, step your right foot forward. I always like using the blocks to get a feeling of a little bit more spaciousness. Step your right foot forward. Drill your right heel down. Lift your right toes up. The hip is right over the left knee and the back leg. You're pressing the heel down. With the right heel pressing down, bend your right knee. Press the heel down, pull in toward the back of the mat as you draw down into the forward bend. So you keep the strong action of the right leg. You're not going too deep into the forward fold, but you are engaging the right leg so fully. Now release out of this pose. Take your right ankle right under the right knee, keeping that. Now take the right knee forward of the right ankle. So in the same way that we were doing earlier, we're going to move the right heel back a little bit. So you can move the knee forward of the ankle quite a bit. If you'd like to take your arms up, feel free to do that, or keep them on the mat or the blocks. But see if you can let your weight just draw down more as you hug the midline of your mat with your feet. Release your hands down. Come back to tabletop position. Step your left foot forward. Press down first. Bend the knee second. Keep that pressure. Heel pressing down, pulling back as you slowly come into a forward fold. You just see how you can go a little bit more fully into the forward fold. Before bending the left knee, start with the knee right over the ankle, but see if you can take the left foot back more, the left knee forward more. So you get quite a bit of tension here. You get quite a stretch on the back side of the left leg. Maybe you can even scoot your heel back even more. So perhaps you're not bearing as much weight on the left heel. Yet you feel like you're getting this nice fullness in the stretch of the Achilles tendon and in the back leg as well. Lift your arms up if you'd like. And take your hands down. Come to tabletop position again. In tabletop position, step your hands one hand front higher and lift up to downward facing dog. In downward facing dog, lift your heels high. Bend both knees. From there, lift your sit bones high. Now draw your heels down. But the legs may not come all the way straight. Sometimes when I say straighten the legs, I see people just jam their knees back. We're not going there. We're trying to keep the engagement on the front side of the thigh, the back side of the thigh. As you come towards straight legs, they may or may not make it to a straight profile, but you're really working the front side of the leg and the back side of the leg. Now step your feet as wide apart as your mat is. And turn your toes out as you walk your hands closer to your feet. Once again, that rule about knee right over the ankle, we're going to bypass that to take the knees slightly forward, but the knee is lined up with the second toe. From here, reach your arms forward, press down, and rise up. Now bend your knees again. You're coming into this strange chair pose with the legs externally rotating. Maybe you can come down further into a squat. Take your hands down, lift yourself up, come back to that chair pose. Now release your hands, walk your hands forward. Have your feet back into the standard downward facing dog feet, which is feet hip distance apart. Walk your way up to the front of the mat. Place your hands to the low back and rise up. The chair pose to the squat that we just did is a wonderful way to open the hips in a nice wide stance that's comfortable for your knees. We'll do one more action before we try that squat again. So step your right foot forward, step your left foot back, bend both knees slightly, and if you feel slightly out of balance, then take your feet just a little wider apart. Lift your back heel up. So as you lift your back heel up, bend your left knee. Keep a slight bend in the front leg, draw it down. Keep your back leg very active. Can you draw your left heel back and bend the knee again? Maybe come forward more. Straighten the leg. Bend the knee, maybe a little bit more. Keep the front leg slightly in this bent leg position. Now see about coming toward a straight leg. Bend your knee to root down and lift up to come out of the pose. It's a really strong engagement of the legs. It's an awkward stance, but it works. Step your left foot forward. Take your right foot back. Place your hands right at your hips and hug your elbows in toward each other. Bend both knees. Now with your back knee bent, lift your heel up with a slight bend to the front leg. Come down to a forward fold. It's kind of like a pose called Parsvottanasana, or pyramid pose. Now see about straightening the back leg. And again, bend the knee, go a little bit deeper into the forward fold. Come toward a straight back leg. And again, bend the knee a lot with the heel lifted. Come a little lower if possible. If you're really engaging this front leg, you feel the hamstrings work, but they're engaged as you go deeper. Reach the right heel back, root down, and rise up. Step the back foot forward. Step to a wide position. For some people, this is called a wide position. If you turn your right toes out, and in what you call a wide position, your right knee easily would come forward of your ankle like this. You're not standing wide enough. So step your left foot back and see if you can bend your knee without taking the knee forward of the ankle. See if you can keep that and take your arms up. Keep the back leg strong. Come to Parsvakonasana, side angle stretch as you take your right arm down and reach your left arm over your head for a nice lateral stretch. The knee stays right over the ankle. And you root down through the back leg before taking yourself out of the pose and coming to the left side. Vajrasana 2 first, warrior 2 pose. And again, you've got this nice wide stance. If the knee is forward of the ankle in these standing poses that are called open hip poses, where your hips are parallel to the long edge of the mat, then it's time to adjust the stance. Take your forearm down for a side angle pose. Enjoy the fullness here. Root down to come out of the pose and release your hands. Come to a slightly shorter stance. Take your heels in and your toes out. Bend your knees and take your hands right above the knees. For some of us, this is plenty, but check to make sure that the knees are in the direction of the second toes here, and see if you can drop a little bit lower. You're just dropping down toward the mat. Just check in to make sure the knees are fine when you do this, and rise up. Come to this wide leg partial squat again and draw down. The toes are still drawing out. You're moving toward the floor and you rise up. Now take your feet slightly narrower with the toes drawing out. Use your arms to help you in the balance. Reach your arms forward and draw down. And inhale, rise up. Hands can be in prayer position if you wish. Draw down. Just go to where it feels all right for you in this pose and rise up. Hug in toward that imaginary center line between your feet. Hug in and draw down to keep the legs really active as you're going into the pose. And hug in, especially as you come up. It tends to be slightly more challenging for us to come up than going down because gravity really helps us out going down. So let gravity do its thing to take you all the way down. And park yourself on the mat. In a seated pose, extend your feet forward. Bend your right knee. In the same way that we started, sit on your right heel, if that's possible for you. Bend your left knee and drill it firmly into the mat. As you do, just come toward a forward fold. If you'd like to hold on to your foot, feel free. Not necessary because you want to stay balanced here. As you come toward a straight left leg, there's going to be a slight bend to it, but see if you can pull in from the heel to the pelvis to keep the leg really active as you draw it into this forward fold. And rise up. The more conventional way to do this is to have the foot in half virasana, or the foot just to the outside of the right thigh. But for many of us with some knee concerns, that's not such a good position for us. So if you park your pelvis right on the right heel, it could be easier for you. Take your left foot right under your left sit bone. Extend your right leg forward. Press your right heel down. Pull in with the right knee bent. Draw into the forward fold, keeping that engagement. The back of the right thigh, the front of the right thigh is active, so that you really protect your knee in this work of extending in a forward fold. In this pose of coming to a forward fold. Rise up to come out of the pose and bend your knees. Take your feet as wide apart as your mat is, with the toes slightly turning out. This is another position that perhaps you've been told to avoid, which is turning the toes out to come to a back bend. The instruction to keep your feet hip distance apart, if that causes any concerns for your knees, maybe you can try this instead to just get a little bit more spaciousness in the pose. Lift your pelvis up, keep it lifted. Find fullness in this form. Before drawing the pelvis down, and lift yourself up to come to a seated pose again. This seated pose has your feet together in Parsvakonasana. With your feet together, sit tall, move your feet over toward the left edge of your mat. Get your right shin bone to draw down just by leaning over to the right hip. Take your left leg in a pinwheel pose. Keep your right leg very stable. Use your arms to support you as you come into whatever variation works for you. If you'd like, you can stretch your left leg back, tuck your toes under so you keep the leg very active. And as you just take your weight toward the right side, you can come down to your forearms and enjoy a nice pigeon pose. I like to keep the back leg so active, actually even lift the knee. It just allows for a much more stimulating pigeon pose rather than just hanging out in the forward fold of the pose. Keep this nice engagement. You keep an engagement of the front leg by pressing into the baby toe side of the foot. You keep an engagement of the back leg with the toes tucked under and the kneecap slightly lifted off the mat. Now come back to where you started, so lean to your right, swing your left foot forward, come back to Baddha, this bound angle pose. Move your feet over to the right edge of your mat. Lean in, just draw down toward the left knee. Take your right knee into that pinwheel pose. If it works for you there, just stay there. But some of you might want to go a little bit deeper into the pose. as you do, keep your left hip down, keep your left shin bone down, extend your right leg back with a slight bend to the right knee. Maybe you can bow into the pose. Just open the pelvic area, hip area a little bit more. Both legs stay active. You're not just kind of taking all your weight toward the mat, letting gravity just do its thing. See how you can actively engage. Now come back to the seated position with your feet in Baddha. So from Baddha, lean over to your right side again. Stretch your left leg out. As you lean into your right side, the shin bone is aligned so that you're not going to torque your knee. So see if you can keep that same nice alignment and just park your foot right in the pant leg crease. And support this leg by taking the left foot underneath. So there you are in half lotus. If you're feeling pain in the knee, obviously you need to come out. But by doing these preps, we were able to get a lot more freedom in the knee as we kept it aligned. So come out of the pose, extend both feet forward, pause in Dandasana before bending your left leg. Draw your left knee to the side and put a lot of weight into the left leg. Park the left shin bone nicely. Take the right sit bone down. See if you can cradle the right foot right in the pant leg crease. Bend your right knee to support the action. The feet always stay very active in the pose. Congratulations. You were able to do a full practice with work on both strengthening and lengthening the muscles that support your knee. It's time for Savasana. So extend your legs out. Lie down. Close your eyes. The practice involved a lot of actions on the knees. So just to free the legs, you might want to windshield wiper your feet. To release any felt sense of tension in the legs. Come to stillness as you're ready. Take your attention to your breath. Give yourself time to assimilate, to absorb some of the actions that we did in the practice. Thank you for joining me in this practice where we gave special attention to the knees. Namaste.